We've only just discussed that it isn't working, still very confused and processing. We'll wait until I feel more settled before applying for a divorce. And sometimes it is worth just taking a little break before you start anything, because depending on where you're up to, if you're still making some decisions, then obviously that you need to get to that point where that decision is finally made. And even once you make it, it doesn't feel great. Some people say you must be a relief, but actually you look, ahead and you know what's coming. You know this could be hard, and the pain of it all can really take time to settle. So sometimes it is good to take a breath before you take any sort of legal steps. Um, you want to try and keep it amicable and leave lawyers out of it. Yeah, I completely get that. And actually, you're on the right session then, because that's what we're going to be talking about today. So before I start taking you through the content that I wanted to talk about, which is the sort of DIY approach of divorce, and it's something that I really it's the thing that I work with most. It's the area that I help people with, is keeping lawyers out of it, keeping your costs down, and DIYing as much as you can, but getting some help along the way, because you also don't want to make mistakes. But there is absolutely, it is possible. My clients do this every day. They manage their own divorce, but they get me guiding them in the background so that they aren't making mistakes. Some of my clients are doing court hearings on their own just because they don't have the funds to spend 3,000 on a barrister just for an hour, or maybe they don't want to spend 3,000 just for that little bit of work, and they manage it themselves. So it's absolutely possible, and I'll take you through some things that you can do to manage your own divorce. But before I do that, let me tell you a little bit about me, because you may not have come to any of my sessions before, and it might be the first time that you're coming across me. So if that's the case, let me introduce myself so you know who I am and why I'm talking about all of this. So my background is as a family lawyer. I qualified in my early 20s, and it was the area of law that I decided to specialize in straight away, because it felt the most human to me and the one that was most needed. And so that's what I specialized in. And I carried on working as a family lawyer for many years. I got married and towards the end of my 20s, and we went on to have three beautiful girls. The marriage lasted 15 years. And at that point, I made the decision, the really difficult decision, to end the marriage. And it was my decision to end it, but doesn't mean that I felt good about it. I felt absolutely awful. I really didn't want to take that step. It wasn't something that I planned um, or wanted, but sometimes it just happens that way, where you don't really have a choice, that this is what is going to be happening and you have to take that step. And so actually, I came to that decision, but I wasn't happy. My mental health really plummeted. The children were really struggling. The children were at that point 10, 7, and the little one was 18 months. And so obviously I had my hands full with them, and I'd found myself going through this um, process of separating from my relationship and starting divorce proceedings and everything that comes with it after that. And you guys will know how difficult the thought of it is, and some of you will already be in the process and know how difficult the steps are as well. When I was going through it, and to help the person that asked sort of this question, the confusion of whether to finally divorce, whether divorce really what happens to children through this. And it's a lot that I talk about. I worried about my children quite a bit during this time and in making the decision, because I felt that I would be affecting their mental health, maybe that they would become dysfunctional, maybe not contribute to society, drop out of education? Is this all the things that could happen to my children? Or would it just be that they would have not a normal family life, that they've got two homes and they've got to find a way to navigate these two spaces, and parents that aren't living together maybe have a toxic relationship potentially? How would they manage through all of this? For us as adults, yes, it's tough, but then we end up living in our own places, and the children still have to see both of us, so they're affected longer term. And so I worried about all of this quite a lot. And it sounds like the person that mentioned that in the chat box, you're also worrying about your daughter and having these two places to go. And kind of the things that helped me get my thoughts straight, I journaled a lot around what my life would look like if I stayed in 1 year, 5 years, and 10 years. What my life would look like if I left the relationship in 1 year, 5 years, and 10 years. That showed me that actually, if I stayed, nothing would change. And the things that I was really unhappy with, that really I couldn't put up with anymore, weren't going to change. And I had to be ready to accept that. It's not the other person's fault if I stay. I have to be ready to accept what's happening, how things are, because I made the decision to stay. I also did sort of some pros and cons of staying and leaving. And so I did this list of if I stay, what's the advantages? And the things that I put there would be that my children get to live with their dad, that we financially would do better because we're both earning and we've got one household. The children may not get affected by this. And so I did my list of pros of staying and the cons of staying. And there was a lot more disadvantages in staying for me. And when I looked at that list, the pros and cons of leaving, pros and cons of staying, it was so obvious to me that ending the relationship was the right thing. And actually, there was an advantage to the children in ending the relationship. Even though I was so scared for them, I could see that we could both be happy parents, which is obviously a great thing. He's happy and I'm happy. And that happiness then, goes to the children. They get the benefit of two happy parents. Also, as a role model for our children, I felt like when something was wrong, if I don't take a step to change it, the only steps I could take to change it, then in the future, when they came to me with their difficult times, would they listen to me if I said, look, you need to change this? I know it's hard, but you need to change this. And also, what am I modeling for my children? Were they then willing to put up with things that they shouldn't have put up with? Because I did. And so actually understanding that living in a toxic environment may not have been good for them growing up. And these things were advantages for my children for me leaving. And yes, it was really tough for a few years. It was such a difficult time. I'm not going to sugarcoat it and say it's easy, don't worry, just go straight into it. It was such a difficult time. And don't forget, I did it with legal knowledge. I didn't need a lawyer to do it for me. I didn't need to spend money or worry about how to do it because I knew those things. But emotionally and practically and dealing with your children, those things are so tough. But now, after a few years, when I was able to talk to my children about it, and I said, how do you feel? They say, and they still say, that it was the best thing I did, that we are both happier living separately, that we weren't really suited. And they prefer the situation that we're in now, where they've got two homes. Just so you're aware, the way that we split time with the children was how he wanted it, which is every other weekend. So my girls go to him every other weekend. They're much older now, so it's a bit different. Eldest is 24 in a few weeks, 20-year-old and 15. So my 15-year-old goes every other weekend still, and half the holidays now. Never used to be half the holidays, but we've slowly increased it. and he does have half the holidays, and he's happy with the contact he's having. And if at any point he wants to have more time, he discusses it with the children or discusses it with me, and that's absolutely fine. I don't have a problem with it. So actually, my children are doing better because I made this hard decision. Even though I was so scared for them, they do contribute to society. They've been through education. My 15-year-old obviously is still at secondary school, and they're all stable and doing fine. So all the worries I had didn't actually come true, but it was difficult for a period. And then when we settled into our new home and life settled down, I set up my business to help people in a very different way. So I stopped practicing as a traditional lawyer, but I now help people to do it themselves, to find an amicable route, to try and prevent things from becoming aggressive and defensive to start off with. So that's how I help people now, and I'll tell you a bit about that later on. But let me go through now the content that I wanted to share with you about how to do this yourself, how to approach it if you did want to almost take more control over your divorce rather than leave it to somebody to do everything for you. How could you take control over this process? How could you, I call it DIY it, but you're not doing it all yourself, but almost understanding the process, getting information, getting knowledge, and taking a lot of steps yourself. Because all of us know that divorce is overwhelming. It's a stressful process and actually really expensive as well. And some of you may have heard some stories of what people have spent on their divorce, and that really does, it makes me sad when I see the amount of money people are spending. I came across people that spent £100,000 each, 70,000, 40,000 each. And to be honest, when I went through it, I didn't have any money, let alone that sort of money. And I do wonder what would have happened if I didn't have legal knowledge. How would I have financially managed that? Because I didn't have any funds. I couldn't have got into debt to pay for legal fees. So what would I have done? And that's why I guess I bring a different approach because I see people really stuck. And maybe you're worried about this. Do let me know in the chat box. Are you worried about legal fees? But just to let you know, it doesn't have to be that way. There are ways to keep your fees down, to keep your costs down. And that's something that I'll talk a little bit about today. And I mean, why are we talking about this? Why is this important? For me, it was really important to bring a different way of working because I saw that people needed something different. For you, if you're here, is it important to you to keep your fees down, to keep control, to manage some of this yourself? Some people believe the only way to get through divorce is by instructing a solicitor. And that isn't actually the case. You don't have to instruct a solicitor to get divorced. A lot of this is admin. It's admin work. There's a process, but a lot of it isn't standing in court speaking, which some people don't know. So, obviously from that point of view, we need to give you some information. And to the person that asked if there will be a recording, yes, there will be a recording sent out to you. So look out for that email. And fees are ridiculous, aren't they? People are spending such a lot of money when actually it's a time where you should be saving money. This is a time where you've got one household and you're moving into two households where you need the money. And that's why I really explain to people that you can keep your fees down. Don't spend 25, 30, 40,000 pounds in upwards if you can help it. For some people, there isn't a choice. For example, you may have an injunction in place, a non-molestation injunction, and the other person is not allowed to contact you, or you're not allowed to contact them, or both. And so in those situations, what do you do? If the other person has a solicitor, then you can email their solicitor directly. So you then don't need to worry. You can do it yourself. You don't need to have a solicitor. If they don't have a solicitor and you can't sort of contact them directly, we can talk about a bit about what you could do. The average cost of divorce in the UK is £18,000 each. And this might be somebody who's been amicable and hasn't needed to go to court, because as soon as you start court proceedings, every step of the process will cost you a fair bit of money, because there's things to prepare, there's court hearings, there's work to do after the court hearing. And so if you're in court, that could be about 25, 30,000 upwards. So it can be quite expensive. Many people come to me and they've spent £25,000 already and they haven't really shifted in any way, and they're really worried about where the fees are going to go. And so even if you spend £25,000, that doesn't mean that you've made good progress. You would hope so, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you have. And I don't know if you can afford to pay that. I definitely couldn't have afforded to pay really anything when I got divorced. I just didn't have the funds. The other thing that I have seen a lot is that people will contact me and say, I've got a lawyer, my fees are high, but I don't really know what they're doing. I have no understanding of what is happening. I had a lady contact me recently who said, I don't know where my proceedings are up to. And when she got the information from her lawyer so that she could do it herself, she realized they'd started court proceedings and it wasn't something she had agreed to or realized they'd done. And so there's this whole thing about, are you in control? Just because you've instructed somebody, are they just getting on and doing the things and you're not aware of what's happening? Another client of mine, what had happened to her was that she was in court proceedings and she was aware of this. Court proceedings had started, but there hadn't been any attempt to negotiate to see what the other person's thoughts were around settling or, contact, around finances. They'd just started proceedings straight away. And she'd run out of money after about £20,000. She had no money left. And the worrying thing was, how is she going to continue? And I asked her that question, was there an element of negotiation? And she said, no, we haven't done any negotiation. And so I asked her to go back and start, negotiating. And while that process was happening, she represented herself at court because she had no funds to get somebody to do it for her. And she negotiated it and she got it settled. And actually, it was the offer that the first offer he made was the offer that she had said to me that's what she wanted. So actually, if they'd spoken in some way, even if it was via email, maybe she wouldn't have spent £20,000. So it's not only that you may not know what's happening, but maybe the approach hasn't been the correct approach. And there's another way of doing things to help you, because that's what we've got to find. Got to find that best way for you. So lots of people will spend a lot of money and they're not necessarily happy. So don't think that you have to have a lawyer to get divorced. Of course, it is one approach. And even if you do instruct a lawyer, you can keep your fees down. Don't think that it has to be expensive, because it doesn't necessarily. You might think, but of course I need representation. And again, not necessarily. And definitely you don't have to have representation. A lot of this is paperwork. And if you do end up in court, you can get somebody just to do the court proceedings, or you could do it yourself, like lots of my clients. Some of my clients do get someone to attend court, and they do all the preparation work alongside me with everything, all the information that I give them. They can save themselves thousands, which is really what I want for you. I want you to be able to save money and to do this in the right way for you, because the truth is that you can manage many parts, if not all of your divorce yourself, if you've got some level of guidance and support. So think about how we do this. So how can we help you get your costs down? Well, the first thing is understanding the legal process around divorce. And now, when we talk about divorce, lots of people think it's only a legal process, and it isn't. Like the person who said, we've kind of made this decision, but I think I need time. because divorce isn't just a legal process, it's actually an emotional process. Um, we might see this as black and white. This is a process, but actually, you are a different person. Your family is different. The other person has their own personality and ways of doing things. You might have children, so you might have to do it differently. This this part of your life, this challenge that comes along, is about your emotions as well. My emotions really suffered during the process of separating and divorcing, and the practical steps of, both of us trying to live in different places, separate our finances, work out what will happen with the children, and all the hundreds of other things that you need to do. There's such a lot to do, but one part of this is the legal element. And I'll just talk you through the legal element. With my clients, I talk through everything because obviously you need support in being able to not be triggered, to be maybe potentially live together while everything is going on. You need support around managing how to tell your children. There's so many things that come up. But when we look at just the legal process, understanding this is a big part of what you will need to know. So essentially, it's three key areas, and you might know some of this already. Divorce is now no fault in the UK, which means you don't have to prove wrongdoing. And actually, it's been such a good change because before this change in the law in 2022, um, the, the application process for a divorce was quite complex. If you didn't give enough information, it got rejected. The forms were complicated. Nothing was online. People just didn't understand how to do it. But with this new no-fault process, it's so much easier. You can do this yourself. Don't pay somebody £1,500 to put your divorce application in, because when I do it with my clients, if they want help with it, it can take me 10 minutes to do. Sometimes it's more complicated for you because obviously you've never done it before, but it could take you half an hour to do this yourself. Don't spend the money getting somebody to do it. Do an online application. The questions are reasonably simple and you don't need to prove wrongdoing, so it's much easier. Once you have filed for the divorce, once you've put the application in, there is a whole period you have to wait to get to the next stage, which is conditional order. And in that time, what we recommend you do is get to an agreement, if you can, around the finances. So start that process. Start thinking about what you're going to do around the children, where both of you will live and where the children might live. So the practical elements. What will you do in a short term, in the short term while things are being decided for where you live, who pays the bills, who pays the mortgage, how do you pay school fees or extracurricular activities? All of these decisions can be made, and the longer term decisions can be made as well. So that period, the 20-week period in your divorce from issuing the divorce application to the next stage, that's the time where you are making these decisions. And obviously, I won't go through the sort of the detail of how to settle your finances today because that's not what we're talking about, but I do other sessions on that. You need to get a good understanding of your assets, your debts, your pension, income and expenditure for both of you. And that is a process that you can do yourselves. If you visit one of my other sessions around finances and financial disclosure potentially, then you could find out more about how to manage your finances yourself, how to get to those agreements yourself. And obviously, you need a plan for your children. The courts won't get involved around your children. They assume, as parents, you can do this yourself. And it is possible for you to do this yourself. So, for example, in my case, he only wanted every other weekend. We started off with 2 hours. We moved on slowly to 4 hours, 6 hours, and that process just kept going until he felt comfortable with a whole weekend. And it stayed like that. He's not asked for more time. We've obviously increased the holidays slowly as well. And now we're on every other weekend and half the holidays. But that was just via agreements and really what he wanted. And the children are happy with that as well. They do go and see him when they want to as well. But generally, they're happy with our arrangement. So we didn't have to get anyone involved. You can agree this yourself if it's possible. Think about what's in your children's best interest. And the element that you might want to put in writing, a parenting plan, it's not going to court. It's not going to anybody in particular. It's just for the two of you. So you can write that yourself and save yourself a lot of money. There's plenty of parenting plan templates online that you can find. So if you get to an agreement, grab one of those templates, put your agreement in writing, and it sets out the kind of things that you need to agree. Once you've agreed the wording, get it signed by both of you, and you've got your parenting plan. And that hasn't cost you anything. And obviously, we're hoping that you get to an agreement. Even if you can't get to an agreement, there are low cost ways of getting that sorted out as well. And as I mentioned, divorce is not just legal. Lots of people think this is a legal process, but actually, there's an emotional and practical side. So, how can managing your emotions help you? Because it will help you save money and it will help you get a better outcome. And the reason why I say that is if you can manage your emotions, you can deal with some of the obstacles better. You can negotiate in a way that you are able to hold your own. Sometimes when your emotions are a little bit, tricky, if you're going through a bit of a hard time and you're not able to stabilize your emotions, sometimes you might settle for less because you just want it done. Sometimes you're doing it quick because you can't cope. Maybe you don't take certain steps to find out as much as possible. And from that, because you're struggling with dealing with the other person, for example, and that can sometimes have an impact. So actually managing your emotional health can help you save money. It can help you get a better outcome. Potentially, it could help you have a better relationship with the other person. And obviously, I'm talking generally here. Your situations will be really different. And feel free to put, questions in the chat box, which I can come to afterwards. And we can see what's coming up for you while I'm talking. So I know that lawyers don't talk about emotions, but actually I do because I know myself when my mental health was, going downwards, I struggled to cope. I delayed things. I stuck my head in the sand. Even though I knew what I needed to do, I couldn't do it because I couldn't cope. Because I wasn't coping, the children weren't coping, I couldn't stabilize them. And actually, I started working on myself and I had no money, I have to admit. I didn't have anything. So I wasn't able to spend money on managing my emotional health. But what I did was I was walking a lot. I started exercising, and I didn't go to exercise classes because I couldn't afford it. But a friend of mine who's a PT, he worked out regularly and I worked out with him. I started running. I played badminton. I danced around the kitchen, anything that I could do to manage my emotions. I found ways to bring joy into my life that didn't cost anything. I also went to my GP, and the GP referred me to an absolute brilliant counselor that came to the surgery. And I'm still in touch with him. He's an amazing man. Um, and he really made a massive difference to me. He gave me the tools to cope. And that was a lifesaver for me at that point. So, what could you do to help yourself with your emotions? I know it's not legal, but this will make a difference. You can be mentally prepared. You can prepare for the worst, and there will be a lot of challenges, but you can manage those challenges better if your emotional health is more stable. So think about what you could do to help yourself with that, because that can really help you too. And it helps you take control of your divorce because you can manage things. It helps you get to a point where you will take action because everything is about the action you take. It will help you save money and get better outcomes as well. And then there's the practical element, and I mentioned that a little bit already. There's so many practical things to think about. so many practical things that you need to do as well. And some of you will have come across this already. You'll know that there's so many different things that need to happen. A really big tip that I can share with you that helps you is to stay organized and manage the documents that you have coming in and out. So organization will be key around this time, because without that organization, things can quickly become really overwhelming. So, putting something in place and trying to keep to it will really help you keep your mind straight. When you get asked for something, you know where it is. If, for example, you're thinking, okay, what was that amount? How much did that he or she have in their bank account, that particular account? You've got the information, which will really help you. So what essential information do you need, and how do you sort of organize yourself? Well, the first thing is your marriage certificate. You will need a digital copy, a photograph or a scanned version of that for applying for divorce. So make sure you've got it. You don't need your original anymore. That's what they used to ask for. You don't need that now. So make sure you've got your marriage certificate, a digital copy of that to hand, and save that. You can have a digital filing cabinet. So you've got sort of folders on your laptop, on the clouds somewhere where it's safe and secure. Make sure you've got privacy and security around your documents. You don't want anybody getting their hands on it, and you certainly don't want the other person getting their hands on them either. So you need financial records, bank statements, mortgage details. If you've got property, you will need valuations, and you might want to do 3 valuations per property. You might have rental property, and for those, you might have tenancy agreements. So what I would do is a folder around each property, and you've got your valuations there, you've got your mortgage statements there, you've got tenancy agreements if you've got something, if you've got rental properties. So you've got all that information saved in a folder. You might need to get values for your pension, and the value that you need to get is the cash equivalent transfer value. So make sure you've got a pensions folder with these documents that the pension companies will send you, so that you've got all of them in a separate place. And then if there's any liabilities or debts, make sure you keep information about that as well. If you've got credit card debt, if you've got a loan, if you've got a loan from family friends and you've got something in writing, you might have text messages about this loan. Keep everything in one place so that you feel organized. You may have come to an agreement with your ex-partner. So there may have been an email where they said, yeah, I agree with what you want. This is what I want. This is what you want. I think we've got an agreement. It's always worth turning that into a PDF and saving that, because you've got that to hand. So anything like this that you might have, it's worth setting up a digital filing cabinet or a physical filing cabinet if you prefer, whichever way you work better. Obviously, from a privacy point of view, just make sure that no one has access to it. Having everything in one place is going to help you capture information, get information, and make negotiations much easier. You can have a spreadsheet if you like spreadsheets. Some people absolutely hate them, but I used to hate them and I love them now. You can have a spreadsheet with information written down. So all the assets you've got in your name, you can have it written. Bank accounts, write out all your bank accounts. On your side, write the balances. On the other person's side, write out what bank accounts they've got and the balances. Write down what shares you've got, what investments you've got, what pensions you've got, what businesses you've got, cars, all the assets. So a spreadsheet can help you feel organized. You can track notes there. You can put information that you're missing there, so that you've got this whole organization that will make you feel better, because you can capture information, you know where you're at. You can also track key deadlines. So if you've got deadlines to submit information, you can have, as part of your spreadsheet, just a section where you track dates that you need to do things. And obviously, the more organized you are, the better you will feel, the more prepared you feel, and more confident you will feel. The other thing you can do is think about communication and negotiation. Again, this isn't legal, and I can talk to you about all the legal information, and lots of my calls like this are about legal knowledge. But some of these things can help you. So if you can communicate with the other person, and if you work out how to negotiate with them as well, then you can definitely keep your costs down. You can do it yourself, and it can make a big difference because actually you're cutting out all these people in the middle. So, how will you communicate? How do you communicate with the other person? Do you have a way that really helps you communicate? One of the biggest things is keeping your emotions in check when you communicate. So lots of my clients will write communication to their ex-partner themselves, but they will check them in with me. They'll say, I'm thinking of sending this, what do you think? And sometimes when I look at that, often when I look at that, they've written from a place of emotion. They're either angry, they're sad, they're upset, or they're throwing accusations or blaming because they're upset. But when you send an email like that, the other person will retaliate. They will also feel upset. You might trigger them. You might cause a massive argument. And maybe that argument was brewing anyway, it's not your fault. But by making your communication emotional, that can make things worse and worse. And then you both lawyer up and you fight it out, which costs a lot of money. So actually learning how to communicate with the other person can make a big difference. And even if you have got lawyers, even then you have to think about what is this piece of communication going to achieve? What do I want to achieve? How can I say it even to my lawyer in a way that is sensible, is measured? Because they will charge you to have an hour's conversation where you're emotional and you're ranting and you're upset, and then they write the email for you, and it's simple and measured, and so it's almost you taking that step back and becoming measured yourself. So if you have a lawyer, you still keep your costs down. So I know that it's so easy to feel frustrated or upset, angry, hurt, all of these things when it comes to communication. But if you could put it away and think to yourself, what do I need to put in here to move things forward? I'm only future focused. It will make a really big difference. So see if that is possible. Focus on the facts, focus on what's best for you and the children rather than anything in the past. Put that behind you because we have to move forward. Try and use written communication wherever you can because sometimes when you verbally talk things out, there could be people forget what was said. They'll say, you didn't say that, that wasn't put to me, I didn't understand. So sometimes actually you could have a verbal conversation and follow it up with an email or a text message, however you write back. But it's always good to put it in writing so that there's no mistakes about what was said. Think before you write anything, think twice before you respond. Because when you get communication that upsets you from the other person, what you might do is react. You need to take a breath, you need to take a step back and give yourself some space to breathe and think before you respond. We want you to respond, not react, because that's an argument. That's not constructive. It's not moving you forward. It's going to cost you money because those arguments will continue via lawyers if you can't get to an agreement. Keep records of anything that you've agreed. So even if it's a small thing that's agreed, just make sure you follow that up with an email. You've got it in writing. Keep a record that this was agreed. And try and keep your emotional arguments obviously a little bit lower. If you're struggling to communicate, you're struggling to get to an agreement, the next best thing to do is see if there's family and friends that can help you. There may be somebody who you both trust who can be that middle person. That can really help rather than spending money on lawyers straight away. See if that is possible. It might be. There may be somebody you could use, even if it is that all emails go through them. Because when there is a third person watching, you'll both write differently, you'll respond differently. So that can help. Mediation can be another aspect that can really help. Because if you can't communicate yourselves because you can't be constructive, then think about taking that step into a space where you can have constructive discussions that are facilitated by a professional. Mediation is definitely more cost effective. It's a more amicable way of resolving disputes. And also, the three of you are in a room together or you're in online together. So it's quicker. You can have mediation where you both are in different rooms and the mediator goes between you. You can have that online as well. So different breakout rooms and the mediator will go between you. So that can really help because mediation is a space where you are able to try and get to those agreements. And if you don't get to an agreement in mediation, what you will get is an understanding of the other person's arguments, the other person's proposals, how they're reacting to things, what potentially could be the trigger points for them. And a lot of keeping your costs down is really understanding the other person. And that's what we do in a negotiation. If you're negotiating anything, understand the other person that you're negotiating with. How best can you get them over the line? How best can you make sure that you don't trigger them? You have constructive discussions, understand that person. And mediation really helps you do that. And obviously, calm communication is going to save you time, money, and stress. You can get everything agreed through mediation. What tools could you use? So there are lots of co-parenting apps which can be useful. Things like Our Family Wizard, App Close can help you manage schedules, communication, receipts, all sorts of things like that. I think Our Family Wizard has a subscription. App Close at the moment doesn't, so it's worth looking around for these apps that can help you communicate from a parenting point of view if you have children or children that are young. There's lots of resources that can help you. So I have a divorce planner, which kind of is a step-by-step guide to help you organize yourself and get things written down. It's a book that's available on Amazon. If you search for my name, it should come up. And that is a planner to help you take action. So that can really help you as well. But you might be thinking, this is all great because there's lots of ways I can save money, but I just don't know enough to even take any steps. So, I mean, I would say knowledge is one of the most important things. I had knowledge. I know I still found it difficult, but I had that. I was grateful for the knowledge I had around divorce to help myself. What can you do to get that knowledge? And actually, it doesn't matter whether you're doing it yourself with help, or whether you instruct a lawyer, make sure you get knowledge. And you guys, I don't have to say that to because you come to these sessions to get knowledge. So I know that you're here to learn, to get as much as you can. And some of you come every week to get that knowledge. I've had people message me to say, I come every single week and I've learned so much that I managed the process myself. And that's what I want to see. I want to see you saving money, doing this process as much as possible yourself. So see how you could get knowledge. Spend some time understanding different elements. And obviously now we have ChatGPT. People use, AI to get that knowledge. And it is great, but it does make mistakes. So just be careful. I did have somebody who I was chatting to who said, this is the law. And I said, that's incorrect. And they said, no, it's definitely right. And they're not legally trained. And I said, that's definitely wrong. Well, ChatGPT told me that that's right. And I went on to chat while I was on the call with them, and ChatGPT told me the same thing. And I said, I asked Chat, did the regulations change? They changed recently. Can you please update what you're saying because the regulations have changed? And Chat instantly said, yes, I'm so sorry, I missed that. The regulations have changed. And so you have to be a bit careful when you use AI because it can make mistakes, but you've got lots of options. AI is really good at if you write an email and you're not sure if it's hitting the mark, you could say to the different AI options that are available, you can put in there, here's a letter that I've written. I wanted it to achieve this, this, and this. Can you rewrite it so that it's more professional, more measured, more focused, and helps me achieve my goals and takes the emotions out? And it will write something which you'll need to amend slightly, but it can give you really good options. Go and get this knowledge. Spend time understanding as much as you can. Because actually, lots of people have come to me and said that my lawyer told me it had to be this way and I did it, and now I wish I'd done it differently. Because there's so many options. You have to also have knowledge. It doesn't matter who you work with, they'll have their own opinion. You've got to find your way, and you'll only know your way if you actually go out and learn. So get the help when you need it, though, as well, because whilst you can get limited knowledge, you can get a certain amount of knowledge, you can't get the years of experience. So you might need to get some help. So yesterday I was on the phone to somebody who has done quite a bit of work herself already, which is great, but they're stuck in this place. And in just, a half an hour conversation, I was able to give her some creative insights on how she could settle her finances. And she'd never thought of it, and she'd had lawyers and she'd spoken to lots of people, and she'd never thought of the ideas I gave her because it was creative. It was thinking outside the box. I'm a business owner. I have three businesses. Obviously, I'm a property owner, and one of my businesses is a property business. So I've got a lot of knowledge around lots of things. And so sometimes you need to get the help as well. You can't do it all yourself. You might just need to get an hour here, an hour there to work out whether your approach is correct, the proposals you want to put forward are correct. Is there any other options that might be better? How would the court see it? So, yes, you can do a lot of it yourself, but get some help in at very important points so that you get some guidance along the way as well. And that's what I would recommend, is to have that sort of mixed approach where you do lots of it yourself, but you get guidance as well. And that's the work that I do. When I speak to people, I will give them 4 steps to go away and do themselves with templates, with examples, with downloadable information where they can go and actually do it themselves. So, with that sort of approach, I can take you 4 or 5 steps ahead just in that 1 hour. So you could go ahead and save so much money. So, for example, I helped somebody with their Form E, told them to fill it in. In an hour, I was able to let them know what was wrong with the Form E, how to make amendments, how to exchange it, how to deal with the next element, which was questionnaires, gave them a template, how to go through the other person's financial disclosure. Now, the cost of all of that probably would have been 10,000 through a lawyer, but in 1 hour, I was able to give them that much direction so they could get to that stage themselves. And really, what I would say is that I know that this is a really difficult time. And what I have learned through all the years that I've helped people through this, just generally in life, is that yes, you've got this thing that you need to do. You need to get to the end of your divorce, get a reasonable outcome, settle yourself. But break this into sort of monthly steps and then daily steps that you need to take to get to that end of the journey. If you look at the whole thing, you're going to feel overwhelmed. But we can break this down into small steps, like I always do with my clients. Here's 3 steps to take or 4 steps to take, and only concentrate on those so that you don't feel overwhelmed. You can feel organized, you can get those done. And every day that you take that small step gets you to the end of the journey. Little by little, you'll get there. So I hope that's helped. I've tried to cover quite a bit in the ways that you can get to control this process, to manage it, keep your costs down, and find other ways of getting through. So, yes, that's everything I wanted to share. And I've told you a bit about how I work. I have lots of different ways that you can work with me. You can work with me just for 1 hour. if that's all you need. You could book a session, 4 sessions if that's what you need, so that you get guidance along the way. You could take one of my courses. I have courses available as well that can give you knowledge, because that is the really important and key part. So I hope that helps, and I'll drop details of how to get in touch with me in the chat box. Don't want to make it too complicated, but drop me an email if you need help. We can have a discussion about what would be right for you, and take it from there. And I know I've talked a lot today, um, and I'm almost out of time, so I'm just going to have a quick look at your questions. Is it better to divorce when the kids are younger? When do the children get a say in who they want to stay with? Really interesting question. Thank you for asking that. And there's two elements to your question. The first is it better to divorce when the children are younger? Well, that's different for different people, but most people say yes, it's better. I wish I'd done it when the children were younger. I had children aged 10, 7, and 18 months, so I mean, I didn't have teenagers, but one was very young and the other one was just getting ready for secondary school. And now my eldest struggled the most, just because maybe she had a lot of memories, and she was at that stage where life was changing a lot because she was going into secondary school and almost teenage years were coming as well. So she struggled the most. The younger one really hasn't struggled because it's all she's known. She doesn't remember living together. So this is all she knows and she adapts well to it. So from her point of view, for her it's been the easiest transition, into, because she didn't understand what was going on, and she just goes with the flow because she's always used to traveling between the two houses anyway. When do the children get a say in who they want to live with or stay with? Okay, again, interesting element to your question. Hopefully you'll be agreeing this yourself. You won't be going to court to get to an agreement. And when we're looking at this, we've got to look at how the maturity of the child, age and understanding, is how the courts would put it. If you've got a 5-year-old, they're a bit young to know what is in their best interests. But if you've got a 14-year-old, they often can tell you what they prefer. It may still not be in their best interests, but they can tell you. And to some extent, the courts do take what a child says when they are a bit older, so sort of 13, 14, they're able to articulate what they want. And we know that they've got an understanding of what they're saying. So I would say when they're a bit older, 12, 13, 14, they definitely can start telling you what they want. You may say that actually at 13, if they say they want to spend equal time with both parents, that's fine because that's what they want. You might say actually they're a bit young to make that decision because you know your child. So it's really a question for you as to when your child is ready. You should always hear them if they're saying something. And obviously they can't make decisions. You need to make the decisions, but you can hear them and acknowledge that you're hearing what they're saying and work out what is best for them, because both of you as parents will need to decide what's best for the child, bearing in mind their wishes and feelings. So probably a little bit older is a good time. When they get to 16, you can't go to court. So a judge won't decide what happens at 16. They're old enough to make their own decisions. So I hope that helps and answers your question. I thought no fault was a good thing, but going through it, I've changed my mind. Okay, really interesting. Thank you for sharing that. If X is controlling or narcissistic or had affairs, manipulated and lied in the marriage, they continue through the divorce and no one cares. They walk away with a better settlement or have hidden money. No one cares and no repercussions for their actions. And I really understand that because I see a lot of abuse during divorce, and control and manipulation. It doesn't stop just because the relationship has ended or you're not living together. It continues, and people can still abuse you and control you through the legal process. And it's a shame that that isn't recognized. But the difference with the law and the way divorce happened before 2022, when no fault came in, yes, you would write a page of what happened, but nobody cared anyway. It had no impact. It doesn't mean that anything would have been different through your process. When you fill in that divorce petition, you would write all these things, and the court would just need to decide on paper, does it look like that person has been unreasonable? And that the question of unreasonable is subjective. So I had cases where somebody was messy, and that was sufficient for it to be unreasonable behavior. Someone kept decorating the house and taking the doors off, rooms, and leaving them without doors, and that was unreasonable. The courts didn't really say, well, that's not unreasonable, is it? Because it's what you can tolerate. But that's where it ended. Nobody ever looked at that again. It had no impact on whether money was hidden, whether they were narcissistic, whether they manipulated you. It made no difference. So actually, that part hasn't changed. So no fault has not changed the rest of the process. The finance process is still the same. The whole situation with children is still the same. So actually, there's no repercussions, and there wasn't then. And it's a shame that the courts and the legal process doesn't take more control and stop people from doing this. We had agreed through mediation and ourselves, got to the point of having it typed up to sign, and he changed his mind again. So we are back to square one. I've no money left, and we are 2 years on. And this happens a lot. People change their minds for whatever reason. Sometimes it is to control you, to manipulate you, or maybe they took advice and realized that actually they could get more, or it is just to upset you. We can never be sure, but until that is a court order, even if it is an agreement put into a court order, they can always change their minds. Even once it's sent to court, it could be changed if they've changed their mind until it is made into a court order. So that's the difficulty. It's not set. And obviously, you agreed through mediation, and I don't know if that's something you could look at again. And maybe you could look at publicly funded mediation if that's possible for you. If you're on low income or certain benefits, you could get publicly funded mediation. So you don't need to pay to take that step. If you have tried everything, and you may have tried absolutely everything to try and get to an agreement, the next step is court proceedings. And again, you can do this yourself. Many of my clients do it themselves just to get to that end result. I've got a client who just finished her proceedings, and she worked with me for 1 year. Before that, for 4 years, she went through solicitors trying to get this agreed and settled, and she couldn't get it done. In a year, we managed to get it finalized, and she did every hearing herself. She had to learn how to present and write position statements, etc. But actually, she did do it herself, and she had to manage her emotions. But at least it got finished, and she put a lot of work and effort into getting it finished. But it can be done. If you can't pay the court fee to start proceedings, then again, you can get help with fees. So you don't have to pay those court fees. So think about how potentially you could do it. It's not ideal though, but unfortunately the court system isn't ideal. Personally speaking, mediation was hard work, could never get hold of her. She never replied, left it long between meetings, and I was dealing with a controlling, awkward ex, and she told him if he wanted more money from the sale of the house to defer the sale. When I'd finally got him to agree, so for me, mediation didn't work and just took what little money I had. And sometimes it really just doesn't work. Depends on the mediator, but sometimes mediation didn't work for me as well. And I was already a trained mediator when I went to mediation. And it didn't work for me. He walked out because difficult questions got asked. He walked out and didn't refuse to come back. But what I did was learn a lot about him and how to manage him and his trigger points. And I managed to get it settled outside of mediation. What happens if you are emotionally separated and agree to live separately as we have grown up children, and the husband is not willing to apply for divorce, as he says it's expensive and he cannot do the settlement? Is it okay to live separately without divorcing legally? Is there any long-term issues if I don't get divorced? You've got to do it your way. Don't feel pressurized to do it the way that everybody will tell you. You do you and what's right for you. If for you, and I've got clients that separated and never got divorced, they separated their finances as well, and they've never gone through the legal process. And actually, it's worked really well for them. They don't feel the need to go through a legal process. But you have to be aware of finances. And I would suggest that you split your finances, even though you're separated and not divorced. Because if you don't, 10 years down the line, you find out that that person has no money left, they've didn't really pay into a pension, the house was in their name, but they've remortgaged it and the money's disappeared. That's where the consequences can come. If you decide to separate, as in live in separate houses, but not get divorced, then sort out the finances. If you decide that you're going to live in the same house, live separately, but still live there, that's fine, but come write a separation agreement out so you both understand the terms of that separation. What does it mean? How are you going to pay the bills? Who owns the house? I would say you need everything clear and in writing, and even a plan for what happens if you fall out at some point. What steps will you take? So there's no issues like that except financially. Um, you need to keep an eye on things. You might need to separate things, and financially, money might disappear. And then in a year's time, when he says, yes, let's get divorced, there's just less there. And maybe it's a way that that person has delayed things to hide assets. So you have to make that decision based on your circumstances. Only you know what is best. I agree with the comment about the no fault system, as I'm still going through the courts after 3 FDRs and my second directions hearing. Next month, X is non-compliant despite having a penal notice. And this is the problem. The courts allow this to continue. And it doesn't matter, you know, how many hearings you go through. 3 FDRs is a lot of FDRs. We don't normally see that. And if your ex is still non-compliant, there should be consequences, and there isn't. They will attach a penal notice, but what does it mean? It means nothing really. And that's the problem. It's the system that's wrong. They should be penalizing people that behave in this way, and they don't. And it doesn't matter who you work with, that's still the case. Okay, I'm just going to have a look at a private message I've got. This will be my last message because I have gone way over. Okay. If both decide and agree on how to split assets, is it still necessary to disclose what you each hold in individual bank accounts? Financial disclosure is honest and transparent disclosure of what is in your name and what is in the other person's name. And obviously, it's better to do it that way because then both of you know. Lots of people decide they don't want to do it that way, and it works fine for them. What they would end up doing if they've reached an agreement without seeing bank account statements or even what's in the bank account, what they would do is have to fill in the paperwork with that information missing. I would, to protect yourself, put it in writing, put it in an email that what we're going to do is only disclose. Say the family home is the only asset we're going to split. Everything else in your bank account, I don't know what it is. I don't need to know. And you can keep that so that you've got it in writing. Because what could happen is in the future, they could take you to court to say that you lied. So you just need something in writing to say both of us made this decision. Do you offer mediation? How does this work? I don't do mediation anymore. I do work with couples from start to finish, literally doing everything, but I'm not taking on any more clients in that space because obviously I can only work with so many and I am fully booked. But if I've been supporting one of you, generally I support one person and sometimes I take on a few couples. So at the moment, I can work with you separately. And if I work with you separately and you want to be amicable, I can explain to you what you need to tell the other person to do, because ultimately I want you to get out of this without spending too much money and being amicable. So I often will say, okay, I'll work with you individually, but can you please make sure you tell the other person they need to do X, Y, Z, and this is the way we do it, so they understand the process. And I can put it in an email so they can see the email as well. So it's all upfront, but I can only work with one of you, and you can explain the process to the other person to keep your costs down. So I hope that helps. And I know there's a few other messages, so I'm just going to keep that there, and we'll finish. And there should be a replay coming out to you. I hope you found that useful. It's always good to hear what your thoughts are. I try and cover as much as I can, and I've gone way over today, but it's because I've got so much to tell you. Do let me know your thoughts. How did you find it today? Was it useful? Did you get something from it? I hope you did. It's always good to be here with you, and I'll be here next week again on Wednesday. I never know what I'm talking about. We have a list of things, um, but no doubt you'll get an email covering what I'll be covering. I'm more confused, but in a good way. Oh, wow. I'm glad it's a good way, but I really didn't want you to be confused. But thank you for sharing that. It's a lot, isn't it? It's a lot of information. But hopefully you can sit and digest it when you get the replay. Take care, have a good day, and I will catch up with you very soon. Bye bye.